It's your first time playing D&D.
Okay.
Why should I make Baldur's Gate: The Descent into Avernus my first adventure into the world of D&D?
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. It's if you're interested in telling a kind of story that involves taking your players out of their comfort zones,
Right.
then this would be a very fun first adventure. If you have, if you love like books like Faustian books, or you love like Devil's Advocate or Constantine, you've read the Hellblazer stuff, and you've got that sort of vibe that you want to take somebody into this realm, whether they understand the infernal realms or whether they're just like babes in the woods and they're wide-eyed new players, and you want to pull them in there and you want to weave a tale that slowly twists their minds, then this would be a wonderful first start for you. Whether you play Descent into Avernus from the beginning to the end the way we've written it, or whether you just get the book, read through it, find the bits you like and pull them out. There's plenty of material in there for your own homebrew campaign where you could just throw it in as a spice for your campaign that you're running, or you could pull it in and take parts of it and generate your own sort of hellish campaign. So for a first-time DM, I think it's a little daunting for a brand new DM to run it as is. There's a lot going on, and there's a massive amount to digest and comprehend. But if you're a first-time DM, I would recommend going in there, reading it, seeing what you like, pulling out the bits that you enjoy and that you think that give you ideas, and then using that from there and just blowing your players' minds.
Because it does occur to me that this is not only an adventure. This almost feels like an entire campaign setting.
Oh, yeah.
There is so much information about Avernus and how you get there.
Yeah.
That you could live in this world for a very long time.
Yeah.
If you love Constantine.
Yes.
This is such a good bedrock for that type of campaign.
Yeah.
Even just knowing what's happening in Avernus, even if you are in the prime material plane, knowing the other side, what the opposition is doing in Avernus is already very, very fun.
Yeah,
knowing that structure of the villains who are coming after you.
Yeah. I mean, you can ping pong back and forth. I mean, you could have a situation where you're running characters, new characters that then all of a sudden realize that there is this plot going on, and then they bounce back and forth. If you want to kind of go off script of what we've written, you could have it where they're bouncing back and forth. You could involve their planes of existence and sort of get into this whole sort of campaign of the balance between law and chaos. This book gives you, like you said, it gives you the foundation of this whole realm that affects all of the multiverse, and it's going to be interesting to see sort of the feedback of what people do when they get this book, how they run it and how they use it, because it is so big and it's so full of ideas. You can just go with the Infernal War Machines and just have that be sort of the center point of your campaigns.
That could have been a supplement back in the day.
Yeah.
Just Infernal War Machines. Yeah. Everyone would have bought that, right? Like, a book about Infernal War Machines and how to have vehicle combat. That's all in there.
Yeah. That is in there. Devil Pact, making deals with devils. That's another thing that you can throw in as a backbone of your campaign. You could throw it in as just, this is something in my home game, and I'm going to use this how to do devil pacts, just a one shot drop where a devil comes into your campaign and you're like, who's that? And then they're making a deal with you and it creates some kind of problem. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff in here, which is why it kind of works so well as a toy box. For other stuff, and it's
toy box is a good word because it is like a little bit Mordenkainene's Tome of Foes. It's a little bit of Xanathar's Guide to Everything. It's a little bit of this. You get like new rule sets and new monsters that you can learn about, new villains, and now like how to make pacts and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it is because when we're doing this, we're like, this is a new plane of existence that we haven't written about yet, and the more we started to kind of go in it, we're like, oh, you're going to need to know this. Oh, you need to know this. Oh my gosh, you need to know that. Oh, if you're dealing with this, you're going to have to figure that out. So all that stuff then winds up, if you run the entire campaign, it's a massive epic thing that you are writing cosmic history when you play this campaign. But that being said, if you want to take little bits, then
not a bad way to start your D&D campaign or your first D&D experience in general.
Not at all.
Rewriting D&D history is always like a good sell. And it's not like you're just thrust into Avernus, into hell itself.
Yeah.
You start from very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
And then things ramp up.
Yeah. It's the Wizard of Oz. You're just a little girl in Kansas, and you're just hanging out, and then all of a sudden, a tornado hits, and pretty soon you wind up in this crazy world that you don't understand, and you're clinging to your values. What you learned as a Midwestern kid, and you're having to deal with forces and an existing culture that's already there, and you're trying to learn how to deal with that thing and survive and not go under and stick to your guns and not go mad, at the same time. So. It's a tsunami.
It's also an adventure that I think, if anything, defines you and your character.
Yeah.
This is that adventure.
Yeah.
Right. I would say that Tomb of Annihilation, you will learn death.
Yes.
You're not going to probably survive.
Yeah.
With something like this, with Descent into Avernus, you are going to learn who your character is.
Yes.
Super quick, because you are forced to. You will learn if you are the one that goes to the dark side or goes to the side of good, because the quickest path in this book is always going to be evil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Even though you may lose many a friend along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I've so many times I've either had characters as a player, I put my character as lawful good, or I've been a DM and I've seen characters, come in with the lawful good characters. And over the course of the adventure, I've seen the player actually play their character different than what their alignment states. This is going to really do that. If you roll up a paladin and you're like, I've rolled up, Tommy, 2 good shoes, he's going to, toe the line and be, good. This adventure is going to push that and just see all right, how do you handle that? It will define the evil character. How evil is an evil character willing to go? Because there is no bottom to this depth. Ultimately, it's either you're swearing fealty to an archdevil or you're losing your soul, because that's the 2 things the devils are after. They're just, you either serve me or you're giving me your soul. So, that's the bottom line. That's what they want. And they're going to lead you down a garden path to get there. They're in no hurry to jump right to the end point. They want to kind of coax you in there. They're going to lure you in little sweet treats and things where you think you're getting a good deal. And it's a lot like, if you watch Sopranos or any kind of mob story, it's the same kind of thing there. Godfather 2 would be great. It's these things where the first interaction is a very positive one. You're like, wow, they did something really cool for me. And there was no hook. It was hey, here you go. We'll help you out. Okay, fine. Yeah, no, we'll call you later. Or, don't worry about it. And then slowly, more interactions happen, and then there becomes well, now do something for me. And I think as a DM, to play devils that way, they're not in any rush. They're not in a hurry. They've got eternity.
They're also probably trying to eke out what little enjoyment they can get out of the experience. I think of it and it too.
Oh man.
That this entity isn't outright killing people necessarily. It wants to build on your fear and build on your fear and let that grow, because as it describes it, it's like salting the meat. So I can see some of the devils having that kind of approach in Avernus of, not only does it take a couple of steps to get you there, but also this is the only enjoyment they can get.
Yeah.
Out of all the things that happen in Avernus, devils are probably they're the least happy people in Avernus. They're not excited to be in Avernus. No one is.
No, in fact, that's one of the things we put in the book is that when you're running Avernus, as a DM, you may forget oh, this is you're in the 9 hells, and they might just sort of run it the way they would an adventure on the material plane. But a DM that's really paying attention will constantly remind the players that this is a miserable place to be, and it's not fun, and nobody there is having a good time. And so, maybe once per session, just to throw in like little flavor tidbits of just how miserable that place is. But that's a great point. It's like these creatures, these devils, they have all this time, and how often do mortals come down that are just all full of their virtue, and to enjoy the game of corruption from their point of view, it is probably a game to them, or it is something that's like breaks up the misery. It's like, and it's also an opportunity to advance themselves. Devils are all about getting promotions, and man, if you can if you can corrupt a good soul, you're going to be in good graces with the pit fiend.
See, I actually do think Avernus is one of the perfect adventures for new players, because it's such a tone that you do not expect, right? Because a lot of us have preconceived notions of fantasy. But this is, like you said, if you like Constantine, if you like the series Supernatural.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you like a little Doctor Strange.
Sure.
You're going to go from being in the prime material plane, being in the Forgotten Realms and Faerun, and then things seem more and more insidious, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're right in the thick of it.
Yeah.
You are in the middle of an interplanar war. And what I love about that is it reminds me of like so many other kind of stories and movies where like the world is a much bigger place than you thought.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even think of it in that sense of the Matrix. Like
Oh,
you had
man,
no idea what lies beneath.
Yeah.
And all of this is happening. And I think that's like a great, because this game, this adventure is levels 1 through what again?
Yeah, well, 1 through, usually it's 1 through 10, but with because of the nature of archdevils and gifts, it could go up to level 20.
Right.
You can make deals for more levels if you're willing to sacrifice. I mean, if you're saying that the devil's like, hey, I'll give you 3 levels in fighter if you go do this for me.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, man, like.
Again, just
right,
tap
yeah.
into that brain.
Yeah.
And give them that knowledge.
Yeah.
That download.
And as a DM, that's where you can really mess with if your player is like that power-hungry gamer, you've got that player, when you're making a devil deal, you can be like, hey, I can give you 3 levels. I can give you a +2 sword here. I can give you, more power. And then that player's like, oh my gosh, I can do it. And, the party's like, no, don't do it. You can create those moments. Another thing is like, when you've got your players at the table, like, sort of look at their flaws of their character, beforehand, and just know that what their weaknesses are. And then as a DM, the devil, devils can read people pretty well. They know mortals and they know what their flaws are. And they can find out what their fears are.